Welcome back to another episode of Consciously Clueless. I'm your host, Carly, and here we break down complex issues around health, the climate crisis, and social justice through a vegan lens. We'll talk about the magic link between your well being and the planet's health, because luckily, choosing a healthier, mindful lifestyle for yourself often creates healthier vibes for our planet too. Staying consciously clueless means getting to show up knowing nothing, but staying open to all that you can learn. From feasting on plant-based meals and reducing waste to learning to meditate, every step you take contributes to your wellness and makes systematic change for the world. You can make a difference. This podcast will show you how.
Carly, it's absolutely great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are the CEO and founder of MotherTree. I would love if we could start there and if you could tell listeners a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So MotherTree, our mission is to make it really easy for values-led businesses to reduce their carbon emissions and save money. And we focus on pension banks and bills. Before this, I was on the founding team of Look After My Bills, which had the best ever deal on Dragon's Den. I think it's probably Shark Tank over in the other side of the pond. And we saved the British public £127 million in 3 years. And now at MotherTree, our goal is to get £1 billion into the green economy by 2025. We represent and we've reviewed already £290 million, so about a quarter of the way to our target. And we work with all kinds of clients, Go Cardless and Bloomsbury Publishing are some of the more well-known ones. Our real thing about MotherTree is the impact that our money is having. So particularly our banks and our pensions and where they're being invested and what kind of future is that creating for us as a society.
Can you say a little bit more for listeners? Because I think for many folks, and myself included, diving into sustainability, there's so much there, right? There's so many things. It's like unraveling all the layers of, because it's all so connected. So when you say the investments and our money and that being connected to the future, what does that mean? And what does MotherTree help maybe then do differently?
Yeah, so if we think about a carbon footprint of an individual or a business, but let's go for an individual, we typically think about the food that somebody eats or how they travel, whether they fly or take the train, those kind of things. Might call it a lifestyle carbon footprint. What we realized at MotherTree is just our choice of bank and our pension provider, it doubles the average consumer's carbon footprint. So here in the UK, the average carbon footprint is about 10 tons. When you add in the bank and the pension, it adds another 10 tons to their carbon footprint. So just two actions are contributing half of our overall carbon footprint. That's because of how the banks and the pension providers are investing. Here in the UK, there's a bank called Barclays. Barclays £1 into fossil fuels every single year. And what we've built at MotherTree, we're pretty sure it's the first of its kind in the world, is a money carbon calculator. So we can understand, based on how Barclays are investing that money, what that does to their overall carbon footprint. And therefore, what does it mean to hold, say, £10,000 in a current account or a checking account with that particular bank?
It's interesting because I think for some folks, talking about caring for the planet seems like an extra to do, especially if you have a lot of privilege, right? And maybe even if you don't, in terms of just like how much can you do on your, but the idea of money and investment and even just where you put your money in something so many people, regardless of how much is there, can relate to, that it's an interesting point to bring up. Like, you're going to probably do this anyway. You're going to have your money somewhere. Can it be somewhere that's better investments? And I know that conversation is growing over here in the States as well, calling out those top banks and helping people emerge from that.
Exactly. Good news is, exactly as you say, if you have even just £1 in an account, or even you've taken out a loan with a bank, well, actually, that's still endorsing their strategy. And so if it's somebody, JP Morgan Chase, or one of the big banks that are investing billions into fossil fuels, that's helping them continue that game.
Right.
The really good news is, actually, by shifting that cash, what we found consistently for their consumers and the businesses that we work for, there are better interest rates for the greener banks. And what that means is you can actually make more money on average when we've looked at the historic performance by holding that cash in a bank that refuses to invest in fossil fuels.
That's a good selling point.
Yeah, it's not about the sustainability, it's just good money.
Yeah, I've had conversations with guests before sometimes where you're like, even if you don't give a shit and your bottom dollar is the only thing you care about, there are some solutions here that are like on a silver platter.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's just getting that message out there so people realize actually, do you know what? It just makes sense about being green or hugging a tree. So actually, no, it just makes financial sense. And the byproduct of that is we're encouraging the market through our choice to invest less in fossil fuels, which means moving that money into places that genuinely make a difference. Renewable energy, affordable housing, clean water, the things that are actually going to build a healthy society
That
in
was
the
my
years to
next question then. How are you vetting, or how is an individual, let's say, supposed to say, I don't want to put my money somewhere that's investing in XYZ, but and another conversation here too is like animal ag and the heavy investment in that from certain places. And so it's, I don't want to, but then how do I know if this place is doing better? What am I looking for?
Yeah, because it's a really opaque industry. The banks don't want us to know where they're investing. But we've built a system which we can see through things like trading platforms where banks are actually lending money.
Hmm.
So we can see with increased clarity where banks are really putting money in terms of industries. So we get very clear on, is a bank investing more money into animal agriculture that's actually mass producing food for us, but is a horrendous impact on the environment around things like mass producing pig farms. Actually, it's horrendous environment around that. Is that something we stand for? So we're really trying to bring clarity on that. So when we make a decision around choosing bank or pension or things like insurance as well,
Hmm.
actually we can do it with eyes open.
Interesting. I know there's growing conversation too about how we can't blame individuals because of these big companies that we're working to do are responsible for that. It's easy, especially I think for greenwashing and marketing, to be like, okay, individuals, fix it. Good luck, everybody. But I think it's interesting you're also working with businesses as well on these different levels of impact to help make a difference in terms of money, because then it's a little bit of more of a system change as that grows out. Do you feel, is that the way you look at that as well?
Yes, I think it's all of the above. So there are individuals who should be blamed. Right,
Mm,
there are individuals who are at the top of these big companies and these big banks who continue to
right.
keep the status quo and continue to put billions into fossil fuels. One example, the chairman of Barclays over here in the UK is called Nigel Higgins. He is responsible for Barclays' 2050 net zero plan. He will be 97 when that plan has to be achieved. It's
Oh,
not his problem. His problem is shareholders right now. And the way we wake him up to this issue is we get enough people leaving Barclays, enough
right.
businesses leaving Barclays, pounds and customers leaving his business and telling him why they're leaving. And what we hope is somebody like Nigel Higgins wakes up to this and then says, actually, do you know what? Barclays are no longer, as of tomorrow, as of today, going to invest in fossil fuels. That puts me out of a job. I will gladly be out of the job if that happens. So absolutely, I think we should shine a light on what's happening on that side. But actually, it is systems because of that. And if we can get enough pounds and dollars and people moving out of these kind of banks and into the banks that still give them great service, give them better interest rates, as we've seen, but crucially start to put money into places we want to see in the next 30 years. Well, we can change the narrative, we can change the system of this climate collapse. And together with insurance and pension, banks, well, where banks are lending money are the three biggest levers we have if big business aren't going to change as quickly as we need them to, which they're not. These are the three biggest levers we have as citizens to make sure our planet isn't in that kind of Armageddon that we tend to hear about.
So you're saying politicians, business, and banks are the three?
So the three big levers as consumers, as citizens, where our money goes, and that means and pensions, and where our insurance is going. Insurance is really interesting because projects can have all the money it needs to go ahead, and this happened in Vietnam, but if it doesn't, it's not going to happen. So in Vietnam a few years ago, coal mines had all the money they needed to start digging for coal over there, but the insurers refused for that to happen. And most of that money overnight got diverted into renewable energy within Vietnam.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just these three colossal levers that we have. And as citizens, we can make an informed choice. It's hard, but we can do it.
Where did this motivation or passion come from for you personally? Where is the moment that those threads connected for you and you wanted to think about sustainability, or
Yeah.
what was that journey?
What's the origin story? There's two things. One is I grew up in a place called Swansea, Wales, and it's on the coast, this beautiful coastline around there, golden beaches and dramatic cliffs, really cold water, which tends to keep the tourists away. Just a wonderful place. And I remember sitting in a geography lesson at 12 about climate change for the first time and realizing without dramatic change, we would lose that part of the world within my lifetime. That was well over 20 years ago now. That thought, we had no idea what to do about it then.
Mm.
And 3.5 years ago, or 4 years ago, actually, my wife was pregnant. We've now got a son called Theo, and that was really the moment it made me think, okay, what's the world going to be like in 30 years? What's the world going to be like for Theo? And I quit my comfortable job and I started researching what became MotherTree.
So there was this like lingering thing in the back of your brain, it sounds like, that had maybe not been paid attention to as much. Was sustainability on your mind at all between 12-year-old and MotherTree?
Yeah, so before launching MotherTree, I was on the founding team of something called Look After My Bills. I mentioned it,
Hmm.
and I remember working there. Everything that I wanted in my sort of mid-20s, and I'd mapped it out, I'd achieved. So we'd had this company that we launched, we'd grown it to 1 million customers in the UK. It was revenue per year, all this really cool stuff. And I still felt empty inside.
Hmm.
I still felt there must be something more here. And I loved it. I loved my time at Look After My Bills. I met some incredible people, worked with some absolutely brilliant entrepreneurs. But at the back of my mind, I was still thinking there must be something. And we were saving people money, right? We were helping them save money every single year. So there was a social benefit to it.
Hmm.
But even then, with all of those kind of things that I mapped out at 25, I thought this is what I want. I realized that actually there has to be something more to this game of entrepreneurship and how we change societies as a form of force for good.
Force for good. That's nice. So if people are listening and maybe have never thought about this, right? Like maybe this is a new kind of thought process. We know our money goes somewhere and it has effects, but I think a lot of times it's like that's not maybe top of list to think of, right? Or to look into. So if this is new for someone, where do you advise to start?
So the first thing is to start to build an understanding of what's going on with the bank. And let's just start with banks. So there's lots of resources out there in the UK. A shameless plug, mymothertree.com will do this. There are others. The way we stand out is we do it with the granular details. So if you had £10,000 or £1 in an account, we'll show you the exact we'll show you the carbon that that's producing over a year. And there are other like bank.green, which will show you a kind of idea at a top level if a bank's good or bad. In the US, there's one called Bank for Good, which again will show people in the US greener banks. There's a brilliant organization over in the US called Topo, which is also starting to do work in this space, run by a chap called Paul Moss. So for me, number one step is to just get clarity both in the US and across Europe and the UK. Once the clarity is there, then you're able to make a bit more of an informed decision. The thing we do with our clients, including businesses worldwide, is then work through what's actually important to them when it comes to the bank, because it's not just is it investing in fossil fuels or not. Actually, it's also, does it just work business? Does it integrate with my accounting software? Is it going to make sure my employees get paid on time? there's lots of other just business requirements that have to be covered. So we work that through with the business, and then we go and source the provider that's actually going to fit their needs and align to their values, and then dramatically reduce their carbon footprint.
It's a helpful thing to have guidance for. I think it's an aspect of life that can be overwhelming is our money, let alone like end of sentence there, let alone what it's doing that we're not even aware of. So I'm so happy that you named some of those resources as places to start because if you Google, is my bank okay? I
Yeah.
imagine there's going to be a lot of shit to sift through.
Oh, there is. I've been there 2.5 years ago. There is, but there are increasingly like really good resources out there which can help.
So as sustainability grows as something people are like, oh yeah, this is something we should pay attention to, of course, then that moves the markets to use it as this greenwashing tool. Are banks doing that as well? Oh, I have this plan for 2050, or we invest this. There's a lot of that narrative here too.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Pretty recently, one of the big banks in the UK saying they're not going to invest in new fossil fuels, which is great. But then you read the small print, and it still allows them to put 15 billion pounds into fossil fuels every single year. So it hasn't changed the dial at all. They're just trying to cash in on the fact that actually people are waking up to the fact that banks are putting money into fossil fuels and they don't want to be associated with it. But they haven't changed the underlying workings of the bank, which is the crucial thing.
Mm.
So absolutely, greenwash is a big issue at the moment with it.
I know it's been a couple of years in this, but you've been in this financial space for a while. Do you feel like these conversations are growing and changing pretty rapidly? Do you feel like it's that painful, be patient kind of, maybe a little bit of both? How does that look in the last few years?
It's definitely growing. If we wind back 10 years, this just was not a thing.
Mm,
5 years, just before COVID, there were a couple of sites. It's definitely growing now as part of the toolbox for people to live more sustainably. It's more well known that actually our banks, our pensions, 401k in the US, and our insurance have an impact, and we should think about those things in the same way we think of eat more of a vegan or a plant-based diet. It's a very similar dynamic now. Honestly, it depends on the day you catch me as to whether I think it's going
fair.
really, but as a trend line, it's definitely going up.
Does this dive into not only sustainability for you personally, but making it your job to learn about how to protect the planet? Has that continued or has that bled over into other areas of your life that have changed because of things you learn along the way?
Oh yeah. And also my way into this was to reduce, I thought this was a carbon reduction challenge.
Mm,
51 billion tons of carbon dioxide is produced every year. And that's what I thought was the issue. We had to get that to zero. It's so much more than that. We could solve that part and we'd still be messed up, for lack of using a stronger word, because we haven't solved the biodiversity challenge. And actually, if we don't solve that, or the poverty challenge, well, actually people will continue to cut down trees for heat rather than keep them for biodiversity. So it's a much more complex challenge than I first realized, but I love that. And
mm,
actually, the exciting thing is the banks that generally invest away from fossil fuels also are investing in the areas that are genuinely good across the board. Now, that is a generalization. It's important to do the research, but actually, the good news is that it's if you get one of these challenges, you tend to get the others that are involved. So yeah, my mind's absolutely been opened that way. And then I think part of your question was also about my own behavior, I suspect. And yeah, that's changed as well. Diet has dramatically now, like to clear vegan, but my wife would say I'm not. And so I'm on that path. I used to eat meat, been on that journey. I try and limit my flights, although it's been particularly tough as MotherTree's taken off and opties have come up.
interesting.
Challenges there where it's like actually, do we fly? Where possible, we take the train or the coach to get to places where we're presenting. So it hasn't. It's also come with challenges.
Do you want to share any about the challenges?
Yeah. Okay. So I live in Bratislava, which is about as central as we get. But my co-founder is in London, so that just is a challenge in itself. From
Yeah.
99% and we run it remotely. And when we meet in person, I tend to try and tie in as many other meetings as possible
Right.
to make it worth being in London. But one of the challenges, so I had a in Italy last month, and from where I am to the event was probably about an hour. And so I was like, I'm gonna take the train was ridiculously expensive.
Mm.
So yeah, booked the coach, overnight coach, 26 hours door to door, slept on the coach, just got there and was just drained. I thought it was going to be great. I'll rock up feeling amazing about myself because I've done the eco. It wasn't the case. I was wrong. Had to get the coach back as well, which was after a great drinks, and you'd had a few days there with brilliant people to kind of come down anyway on that
Yeah.
stuff. It's just like I was blue on the coach. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's not, I'd love to be able to say the message of, yeah, on every, no, there are some parts where actually it's a genuine challenge. But the cool thing is there are some parts where it's much easier than I thought to do. And there's so many better benefits. Diet being an obvious one, where actually there's lots of research coming out now which shows a plant-based diet, our health systems work better. I can only speak for myself, but I'm less tired since I switched, and it's the case for about 3 years now. I'm more aware, I'm more active, just so many great health benefits. I used to get, and I still get a tiny bit when I'm bring wheat back into my diet, but these big red blotches on my face, they completely cleared up, changed diet. And the doctor was telling me I need to take these creams forevermore to manage. No, it's just diet. And then the banking side, we could switch bank and get a better interest rate. And that's actually sustainable, provided that bank's not investing in fossil fuels. There are definitely upsides, but yeah, travel I found hasn't been smooth sailing as I thought.
I really appreciate you, right? Because that's the reality. I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, but when I first dove into like really head first into, I went vegan, the dominoes fell. I was like, holy shit, everything is intertwined and is a sinking ship. We have to do something. That was a bit of the vibe. And that gets a bit intense. And I wanted everyone to like pay attention and listen to these things that I was learning. And I was like, no, seriously, but not everyone learns that way. And I certainly don't. And so I had to have this period of figuring out all of the things at once. Like sometimes things are going to be really easy and sometimes things are going to be really hard. You can't blame others for where they're at, even if you want to scream at your family and friends for eating a better diet or whatever it is, right? That's just the reality. And in an early interview, I remember someone said you can't be perfectly sustainable in an imperfectly sustainable world. And that
Mm-hmm.
helps me so much just to remember that I want to do as much as I can with the privilege I have without burning out. That's the goal, right? But perfection in a world with systems that are not set up for that way of life yet is not going to always be easy.
Yeah, an important message to get across. Good definitely beats perfect in this because there is no perfect sustainability. Life
Mm-hmm.
doesn't exist. I love the phrase that you used. What was it? Imperfect. We can't be perfectly sustainable in an imperfect.
Imperfectly sustainable world.
Yeah, I just think that's amazing. What a way to sum it up. And then the blame others piece. Yeah, journey on that. I haven't ever been someone who blames.
Mm-hmm.
There's the people I know. I'll blame Nigel Higgins, like the chairman of. But the people, yeah, exactly. But my family and friends, that's their choice of life. I try very hard not when I'm them because also I've had days people preach to me, and I'm like, as you said, it's just not the way.
Mm-hmm.
Equally, by me doing what I do now, I do feel a sense of being judged more by my friends and family.
Interesting.
They,
I'm gonna ask about this.
hmm, they anything that's not fully sustainable will have a comment against it now. And my stance is, look, it's as you said, nobody's perfect. I will try my best with where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Diet, I'd love to be vegan,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not. I probably I'm a tiny amount of cheese each month. That's it. But it's imperfect.
Mm-hmm. And it's not vegan. And if that's your goal, I support you so much. But the idea of it having to be perfect or be there right now is relevant to the fact that you care to me.
Oh, I'm completely with you. I'm so glad that's your shtick. And also the idea of being perfect is actually a limiting thought because it means we hold back that we can do right now.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good idea or good thought as well, because with the idea of not being able to be perfect, it's by no means saying that you don't get to try, right? That doesn't absolve us from trying to do what we can, because some of the trolling pushback comments I get when I post about veganism are a lot of why does this matter? Also, this happens. Did you know that some crop, blah, blah, blah. The soy argument's coming up a lot right now. I feel like a pamphlet went out to these bro guys on the internet that I didn't see because everyone has the same argument, but I digress. And it is a reminder that sustainability, veganism, whatever it is, as this thing that you achieve perfectly. Because if that's the narrative, if that's the stereotype, then people are already mad at it.
Yeah.
And people are already like, I couldn't do that. I can't do that. And it's, did you know, someone literally commented on a video, was like, you step on bugs and you probably have driven on bugs. And I'm like, ah, every day. I'm not ignorant to that. I'm trying, for me, like for my definition of veganism, is trying to cause the least amount of harm possible. That doesn't mean I think I'm a Disney princess that floats around on a cloud, although that sounds great. It's not the vibe, right? So I keep trying to keep that in mind too. Yeah, I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm trying to cause the least harm with the privilege I have, but I'm not gonna promote that lifestyle as something you can do perfectly, because then we're all just set up for failure.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point because there's no sort of end result here. We're constantly figuring new stuff out about our planet, about the wildlife that's here, about how we interact and the systems involved. It's just a journey, and
Mhm.
that's okay. It's like it's part of the fun of it. It's like we get to
Yeah.
discover new foods, new ways of travel, not always the best, new ways of banking. It's just part of the fun of the journey of yeah, doing as least amount of harm as possible and having the most possible positive impacts that we can have.
Is there, when you have conversations with family or friends and you say you get those comments or pushback, is there, is that the only feedback you get, or do you think there has been some positive influence on people in your life as well because of this work and you diving into this world?
There's definitely the friendship group.
Mm, hmm.
My family, unbelievably supportive, surprisingly supportive, actually. My parents switched back. They started talking to their friends about MotherTree, and my mum's a small investor in the company, which is very sweet. So just wonderfully supportive, actually, in a way that I was. My friends, it's interesting. We're not, with my older friends, we're not that kind of group where it's very much supporting each other. It's more making fun of each other because that's how we connect. And some really great things in their own spaces, right? So I think we're all kind of influential in that respect, but it's not. We don't really take the time to. It's an interesting question, actually. You've caught me out on that one. In the way that perhaps male friend about 15 years ago would support each other, which is like, oh, great work, but you're a dickhead. Now let's move on, kind of thing. It's a bit of give and take on that one.
So in a previous life, I had a master's degree and did all of this work, and a lot of my studies was masculinity and the connection between studying masculinity and toxic masculinity and what that does in gender-based violence, all of that stuff. This is connected, I swear. And I remember reading a study about a year ago about masculine caring for the planet and how some of those tropes that happen for men, like the societal pressure, not just because you're a dude, pushes that to be a more feminine trait, to be caring for the planet. And so sometimes there's a pushback or maybe not the same conversation happening in some of those spaces. And I just think that's interesting. And I don't think it's anyone's fault. Again, it's like these social norms that become normal. So I thought of that when you're saying like, yeah, I think there's the support, but there's a little bit of the razzing as well. And I wonder if it's a little bit of that. I don't know, maybe there's some uncomfortability with the topic sometimes. I'm putting words in your friend's mouth, but I'm just curious.
Incredible background, Carly. I think that's inspiring.
Thank
Look,
you.
I've gone on a quite dramatic change in the last sort of 8 to 10 years. So when somebody changes, there's always a bit of an adjustment, and there's that sense of belonging, and do they belong in that crowd anymore, etc. So there is a lot of kind of subconscious stuff going on
I get that.
in those friendship groups. So I just get why that's been the reaction that it's been. But
Yeah.
even given all that, some of them have been incredibly supportive. Your point about caring, I think, is such a key one in all of this, because, and it isn't in our society, it's not a particularly masculine point, although that's a tragedy of how we view modern males. And actually, I do think that's changing. I think increasing a number of males
Agreed.
care, but certainly in our leaders who care, and actually at that leadership level, that does tend to be more women than men. If we look at politicians, Jacinda Ardern as an example. And so there's just this really interesting dynamic, more people in general, but particularly white males, and to care more openly. The flip side of that, I think, the climate movement, worryingly, a lot of the kind of awards that we see in the kudos being given tends to be to white men, following the same trope of, say, VC funding, where 99% of it goes to women, despite the fact that women female founders outperform male female founders. So in general, so it's just we're at this really interesting inflection point where we need more of that feminine leadership, and we need to acknowledge that. And a lot of the work I do on LinkedIn is to actually raise up female leaders to say
Mhm.
this, we should be following. And Catherine Hayes, inspiration for me about that, and how to deal with difficult conversations, but also how to bring in more caring
Mhm.
to the situation. I think I'm quite lucky. I have two older sisters, so I suspect it's been drummed into
That'll
uh, my superpower, two older sisters. But yeah, I think it's such an important part of our society.
Yeah, I really appreciate that because I think what you identify is concerning as we start to see the environment space. Something in my head, I just want to believe it's a radical space just because it's the idea of saving the planet, but it is falling into that same trope of the people of color and women not being recognized for doing that work longer or the same work or whatever it is. And I appreciate that your awareness of that is causing you to try and counteract that as well, to not just be like, oh, that's shitty, because we can all say that
Mhm.
sucks on a lot of things, but finding a way who can then try and counteract that is really beautiful, and a reminder that posting on XYZ to help in different ways can actually be pretty helpful and be pretty effective when we do this kind of intentional networking and sharing with people that are doing incredible work that we don't even know about yet.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Coming from a privileged position and a white male, so I think it is important to try and more address it. What we do at MotherTree with one of our client female founders, Emma and Amy, digital marketing agency, and they, before they started that, they never had a female boss in their career between them, and they had 10, 15-year careers each before they launched their business, and they recruit out of business and out of foster care. So their whole ethos of the business is about equality, it's about social mobility. And when we looked at, their bank was investing millions into all white male boards, all white suites, and just really undermining what Emma and Amy stood for. So we worked with them to shift the bank. We saved them money, got interest rate, we reduced their carbon. But the thing Emma and Amy got real value out of, they now know their new bank invests proportionally more into diverse leadership teams, diverse C-suites, but also into prison systems that allow for the genuine reintegration of citizens, like the Norwegian system. And so it's just this really cool piece where Emma and Amy, they're not really about climate, but what they mobility and equal pay. And there are other ways, not just through the business, and their recruitment is so important to that. And their story is so important, but actually just through where their bank is going, that can really help to change and support their mission.
I think that's incredible and such a good example of people who think and are doing great work with that connection to where you can still be investing in, like you said, pretty much the opposite of what they were trying to build. The first time I really learned about animal agriculture subsidies and the where my money was going in terms of taxes, I was just like, oh, what the hell? Like we don't learn about it on a lot of times by design. So I think this conversation is really inspiring for folks and a good reminder for me to really take the next step in diving into this piece of sustainability and find out if there's ways I can make my money do less of the harm that I'm trying with my choices personally to mitigate.
Mm. Thank you. That's
Mhm.
great. That's had an impact. I appreciate that.
Do you have anything else you want to share with listeners that I haven't given you space to do?
It's a very thoughtful question. I resonated, or if somebody has a question, wants to challenge or something that I've said, we're very open to that as well. Do reach out on, I'm Dan Sherrad-Smith. I'm pretty sure I'm the only Dan Sherrad-Smith on LinkedIn. Add, connect, follow all those good things. And yeah, do reach out to ask any questions.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode of Consciously Clueless. And for that, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, tag me when you share on social media, or share this episode with others who may be interested in the topic. Any sharing truly means the world to me. Join the community at patreon.com/consciouslycarly for bonus podcast content like smoke sessions with Consciously Cannabis guests, video versions of solo episodes, monthly live calls, one-to-one support, more lifestyle content, mindfulness resources, and more. Until next time, stay consciously clueless.